Clubhouse.
We journey the path of the pioneers in the name of lost love, soon to be found.
Welcome to Pod Clubhouse's coverage of 1923, a prequel series to Yellowstone. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Tonight we're discussing episode 6 of season 2, the penultimate episode of the season? The series?
What?
The episode was titled The Mountain Teeth of Monsters. Tonight's episode was written by Taylor Sheridan and directed by Ben Richardson.
Just a community note, please join us on Facebook in the Yellowstone 1923, 1883, and 4/6's discussion and news group to discuss 1923 and the whole universe of Yellowstone shows. Just a reminder, we assume you've watched the episode, so if you haven't, please pause, go back and watch it so we don't spoil it for you. We're not going to recap, but we certainly don't want to tell you everything that's going to happen. So go watch it and come on back. Mike, what'd you think about this episode?
Well, before we get into the episode, we have to talk about my little intro there. We're recording this about a week before you guys are listening to it, and we have gotten breaking news from the PR department of Yellowstone, the Yellowstone Universe PR department, and it turns out there will not be 8 episodes this season, but in fact only 7. So this is episode 6, making it the penultimate episode of something. Episode 7 is just being described as the finale. They're very carefully not wording it as a series finale or a season finale, but this is it. We have one less bite at the apple than we thought we did this entire time. So enjoy it, guys, because episode 6 is the second to last hour of this show.
I could not believe
Wild.
This episode. This episode was crazy. I can remember texting you being like, there's 7 deaths. I can't even believe there's 7 deaths in this episode.
Definitely the death episode. It's, it's funny. Before I even knew about the whole finale is episode 7 and not episode 8, I had in my notes, well, one way to start wrapping up storylines is to kill everyone. That's certainly a path to go.
And it's a sure sign things are coming to an end.
Yeah, right. I mean, don't expect any more storylines for Jack, right? Or Pete, or Runs His Horse, or,
Now, do we feel sad making fun of those shaggy pants, or do we feel like, no, those shaggy pants were always our indicator?
We're going to address Jack off the bat, I think. After we're going to talk about Esposito, and then we're going to get right to Jack and get him done and dusted, because that's how he is, done and dusted. I thought out of 7 deaths, 5 of which they were regular or central cast members. That's pretty significant, and I appreciate the big swing. And again, in my notes, I appreciate a big swing in a random episode 6, and it certainly ups the stakes. But is a penultimate episode? It makes a lot of sense now, right? The penultimate episodes, they're my favorite. They're the final table setting. At the end of the episode, everything should be set in a well-done episode for the finale. Whatever's going to happen in the finale should be set up to go and launch by the end of the penultimate episode. And from that point of view, I guess I can see it. I kind of know where everyone is, but I guess we'll go through that now as we discuss where everyone is through this episode's journey. But as a penultimate episode, what did you think of this episode? Yes, a death episode, and shocking from that point of view, from start to finish, death. From Pete to Paul and Hillary,
right.
A to Z. What did you think? Did this work for you from a penultimate episode?
I mean, it was shocking. So from that point of view, I felt like it was very jarring. It definitely made me feel like things are on high speed. We're moving forward very quickly to come to some sort of conclusion. I don't know what type of conclusion we can possibly get to with only one more episode after this. It was taking a little bit of digging into mainline Yellowstone to try to make some predictions as to, like, where could these characters really be going next. We had to do a little bit of digging on IMDb, a little bit of sort of just putting together little bits and bobs we had from different areas. And I think we have some good ideas of where these people might go.
Let's talk about episode themes. As I was going through it, and I was really thinking about Father Renaud and how his storyline weaves in this episode. And he says justice a lot. He says justice more than I have said penultimate already, which is a lot. So I started thinking, well, this is a big theme. And what is justice? This idea of justice, what is justice? And I think, in addition to Father Renaud, who certainly has his idea of what justice is, quote unquote justice, I think every character has an idea of what is just, and we, the audience, probably also have an idea of what we think every character deserves as far as justice goes, or doesn't deserve as far as justice goes. So I was playing with that as a theme, but then as the episode was going on and there was so much death, this clip from Elsa, which ends the episode, really did tie the bow together for me on what this episode is about. And it is bleak. And I have no other way to say it than doomed humanity. And let's take a listen to Elsa here, but then we'll be able to focus on it in the several times it comes up in the storylines.
Man destroys everything. He has been at war with this world since he first entered it. War with its trees. War with its weather. So is everything else. If it was up to the wolves, it would be wolves and nothing else. Same goes for the bear and the snake and the spider. Trees grow tall to rob sunlight from all beneath it. Nothing coexists. Life is a constant state of battle for survival. And only one thing reigns victorious: the world itself. Earth is not a benign rock condemned to endure countless little rapes from its inhabitants. It is a living, evolving, interactive being capable of wiping all existence by the simplest of wobbles on its axis. There have been 5 mass extinctions on this planet, where almost all life was eradicated. Its occupiers cleansed from this place. It only stands to reason that a 6th one is coming.
You know what's so weird? After I watched this episode, you know how YouTube tries to like pick up on what you're watching, and everything's listening, every device in the house. So I had all of these offerings to me on the 6th cataclysmic event that was going to happen, that was going to be completely making the world extinct again, which I thought was like crazy because I didn't at first recognize that that was a comment that Elsa had made. And then all of a sudden my YouTube's like, oh, did you want to know about that?
Were you wanting to prepare? Are you into extinction events?
Were you wanting to prepare for the big 6th? It was kind of funny.
So you want to know about extinction events?
Exactly. Yes.
All right. Let's tie the threads together. We're going to play a bunch of clips here because, in their own way, everything else is talking about there, we hear about in this episode. Here's the rundown of just off the top of my head of tying these together. She says in there, among many things, nothing coexists. Everything is always at war with each other. You have Jacob screaming at Sheriff McDowell that war is, it ain't preventable, he says. It ain't preventable. And then he ends with that epic line of, if he kills Spencer, I'm going to burn his fucking house to the ground with him inside of it. You have Kara talking to Elizabeth right before she finds out about Jack running off, about how the 20th century has seen man covet itself out of existence, and that next time around, God should do a better job making man and making it less covetous, and that we are doomed. Kara very much echoes Elsa's feelings in this. And then you have towards the end of the episode, Tiona verge of giving up on life. Why should we continue? What's the point? Because Renza's horse wants to set a fire. This is after they have found Pete, but before Father Renaud emerges from the bushes. And he tells her that one day we'll be gone, and if you're not here, no one will even remember we're here. And also, you need to stay because eventually the land will revolt against man for all that it's done against the land. And we will need to teach them, those that are still around, how to live back in accord with the land again, which Tiona, maybe rightly, is like, fuck them. They don't deserve our help. But the idea of it is inevitable that the land will revolt, which anyone who ever watched 1883 or has spent any time paying attention to the warnings Elsa has been giving since 1883 and through 1923 and actually in mainline Yellowstone in its last season, it's all about nature doesn't care. Nature will kill you. Nature wants to kill you. Nature wants you gone because you are hurting nature, and nature wants to survive. Nature's just going to nature. The wolves are going to wolves. The bugs are going to bugs. The snakes are going to snake. And man, it gets in the way. This is the theme. It is, I don't know if Taylor was having a real bad day, but he tied this episode together with a thread through of doom, to say nothing with how Alex's storyline ends at the end of this episode, which is where Elsa's voiceover is playing in those final clips. Let's run it down. Let's tie this theme together of doomed humanity and see if maybe I'm just, making stuff up or if it tracks. First one up, Jacob yelling at Sheriff McDowell.
Marshal from Amarillo called. Asked if I could vouch for Spencer Dutton from Bozeman.
Why'd you do that?
Came across him. Said he's coming this way. Did you know?
I hoped.
He reached me by telephone, Jake. Switchboard operators heard every word. And those are very loose lips.
You take the train to Livingston?
I don't know, but that'd be my guess.
I need a schedule. And I need you to park some deputies at that station till he arrives.
Headed there next.
I'll send some cowboys.
You cowboys stay right here.
I got a badge too, Bill. And I don't need your permission to use it.
I'm trying to prevent a war here.
It ain't preventable. It's what he wants. It's what he needs to take this place from us. When did he call?
This afternoon.
From Amarillo. That's 2 days by train.
If Denver's open. If not, he goes to Fargo and over, and that's 3 days at least. Cool heads, Jacob.
If Whitfield finds out, he'll kill him, Bill. And if he does, I swear to God, I will burn his fucking house to the ground with him in it.
Hell yeah. Let's do that to Whitfield. That is what he deserves. But you see it, right? You see the war. It ain't preventable. Nothing coexists. They cannot coexist. And this theme actually continues all the way through to the mainline Yellowstone show in the present. The Dutton Ranch, Broken Rock Reservation, they can barely coexist with each other and together cannot coexist with any of the modernity that is trying to move into the land, build on the park and bring quote unquote tourism dollars to the valley. Nothing can coexist here restfully. Man can't even coexist with itself, let alone with the land or nature. I don't even know what to say there. I didn't think about the loose lips of the switchboard last week. We were having fun with this little quote, which came back to my mind.
Impudence rides side saddle with anonymity.
Who knew Marshall Fawcett was so correct with that, with the switchboard operators? Because we get confirmation in the speakeasy later on, she is the one who is telling Banner's, henchmen about confirming Spencer being on the train and taking a train home from Amarillo. So it is the switchboard operators who definitely leaked this information. I didn't even consider loose lips, but it does make sense why the sheriff hightailed it out of his office last week. Remember, he left the phone swinging. He didn't even hang it up. He understood right away the urgency of the matter.
He did.
Is the sheriff right to continue to thump cooler heads, no war, peace? Or does he sound doddering at this point because it's just so... Because it is so inevitable, it seems.
He has no choice. And to me, he spends a lot of time doing that with the Duttons. But, we've not seen much of him trying to do that with the Whitfield side of the equation. So I think he's just doing what he can to protect his friend because I think he knows if there is a war, there's no way that the Duttons aren't going to lose a lot more people. I think it's coming from a place of like just trying to protect his friends, like more than anything. And I mean, he is a lawman, right? He doesn't want there to be upheaval in the town. He doesn't want there to be all this fighting and stuff. And especially during this time, I think it was a constant battle of trying to create some sort of civility amongst everybody. And, you know, when we're talking about whose land is this and who can walk through what land and all that kind of stuff, like we're trying to just establish the rules of how we're going to treat one another. And this is super growing pains. Like nobody can figure out how to get what they need and also protect what they feel is theirs. It's a mess right now. I don't think that the sheriff is out of line with this, but at this point, what choice does anybody have but to fight for their land? I mean, Whitfield has made a situation where he has no choice but to answer, you know, by going behind everyone's backs and paying the taxes. I mean, the Duttons are in it. They didn't ask to be in it. They are in it.
He gave me flashbacks to Banner screaming at Jacob in the street from season 1 outside of Bozeman. No one owns the land, Jacob Dutton. You don't own the land. God owns the land, Jacob Dutton. I got real flashbacks to that.
Well, and that's fine and well before. But now we're trying to create towns and cities and roads and we need to keep our livestock, you know, in one area and keep them safe from people who are going to steal them, but also from wild animals and stuff. Like there's this push towards trying to become a society, trying to become people who can live next door to each other, create good neighbors, if you will. Right now, we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do this.
I don't think we know how to do it in 2025.
I don't think we do either. I don't think we do either. But I think that there's like established rules that we all at least acknowledge exist. At this point, those rules are just barely becoming the rules. You know, we don't even sometimes know who's in charge of what at different points. And yet we have things like taxes and the idea of going behind someone's back and paying their outstanding taxes. Like, it's interesting because there are parts to this that are well established in how we're going to do things. And then it's very much the Wild West.
I mean, everything you're saying connects perfect. I mean, you're just laying out the greatest segue to the next clip, which is Kara talking to Elizabeth about giving her an education in the way the world really is. Let's take a listen.
Seems surreal to me.
What's that, darling?
It's the 20th century. We have the motor car, the airplane, movie theaters. Mm-hmm. And yet we have men guarding our front porch to prevent other men from taking it, killing us in the process.
Yes. And that won't change no matter what man invents next. Don't let the fancy suits and the cars fool you. We're still animals. And we have much more in common with the wolf than we ever will with the rabbit. I mean, take the 10 Commandments. Shouldn't be too difficult to follow. Don't kill, don't lie, don't steal, and don't covet. And that's the one, Elizabeth, that will lead you to commit all the others. Desiring what another man has, his land, his money, his wife, that has led to every atrocity this world has ever seen. You watch, Elizabeth, the human race will covet itself right out of existence. God should start over and make sure the next version of man behaves nothing like the first one.
That's exactly what you were saying. It was funny listening to Kara talk because it's the second week in a row now that human beings are compared to wolves. Last week it was Kent in a very gross, disgusting way when he's talking to Cowboy Anders down in Amarillo. This week it's Kara talking about how that for all of our fancy things, we're no better than the wolves, that we essentially rely on instinct. We kill or we get killed. We take or we get taken from. And it's interesting, the running theme of wolves, because Elsa even mentions, wolves do wolf things in her opening quote or her closing quote that we played before. This idea that for all of our evolution, for all of our fancy things that Kara says, we're still pretty just territorial animals, right? Take a toy, take a bone away from a dog, he's going to snarl at you. Try and take the land away from a Dutton, they're going to fire at you. The hyenas from Lion King, they sneak and they try and surreptitiously steal the land from the lions. Whitfield in the dark with the taxes. We don't act like civilized beings to each other very often, especially when there's something that our neighbor has that we want and we think should be ours.
I cannot relate relate to Kara's comments more than recently because it's silly stuff. But, you know, between like getting like scam calls for things like, I don't know, most recently it's like toll tag business or whatever. People are doing those scams. Or I had an iPhone on my front porch where the FedEx dropped it off. And the second the FedEx truck drove away, a woman drove up, got out of her car, walked up onto my porch, took my phone, and drove away. And as silly as that sounds, that's not as bad as Elizabeth saying, like, come on our porch and kill us. There is that sense of, like, wolves, like, all around you all the time, whether they're bombarding your emails with all these, oh, you better do this or else bad stuff, or I'm calling you about that loan you're supposed to pay back, or all these things. Doesn't there seem like there's constantly these scammer, wolfy people all around us constantly?
It all starts with coveting, and it leads to everything else. I agree with her. I think Taylor through Kara here is definitely talking about 2025 as much as, 1924, because it is prevalent. Everyone wants what the other person has.
And I think it's so much worse, right? With like TikTok and influencer. I mean, the concept of an influencer is exactly a wolf, right? Like basically, like
I'm going to teach you
clothing. I'm going to teach you to covet, right? I'm going to teach you to covet something that you didn't even know existed until 2 seconds ago, and now I'm going to tell you why you can't live without it. And it does feel like it's just everywhere constantly. I was watching a video about how people are really trying hard to do like a no spend 2025 because they're feeling so bombarded by influencers, so bombarded by people trying to tell them what they need and what they can't live without, more than that. Or how somehow your life is so much less than if you don't have these things. So like you'd be crazy if you didn't get them, and take them if you need to, which I think is a big part of this.
And that it's okay to take them if you need it. There's this whole idea of
entitlement, right?
Entitlement,
like you deserve
but
it. You can have it.
But right and wrong just doesn't even seem to be. People don't seem to think that is the black and white issue that I think you and I grew up thinking. Black and right and wrong was a pretty definitive concept. Now it's all from a point of view.
If I showed you this video of this woman walking up to my porch, she's just casually looking at her phone. She has no sense. I don't mean someone ran up on my porch, snatched it, and ran away.
No, real smooth. No. I think you showed me the ring.
She just walks up like she deserves this. Like this is her phone. And she just takes it and just walks off nice and slow, nice and easy. I got a great camera to get all of her the entire time. But of course, you know what the police say? We're probably not going to be able to get her. I showed them the video. They said, we'll keep the video just in case, all that kind of stuff. But there isn't even any sense of like, everybody's acting like this. So there's like no chance of catching people.
It's depressing.
It is. It's crazy. And I do feel Elizabeth's point in this clip was really good as well, because what I was saying is we're in this weird transition time where you have like cities and roads and airplanes and cars and all this stuff, but we're still just trying to figure out how to deal with like fences, how to deal with like just wild animals coming up onto your porch, like things that you think are like kind of day one. Like we need to figure this kind of stuff out, at least just from watching like Survivor and stuff. Like day one, make sure your shelter is good. Make sure you have some protection. Make sure you're good in that department. It feels like they're still just at that stage when the rest of the world has this moving forward. Like you have Whitfields, but you have Banners and you have Duttons, all with different levels of physical things, but then also like just their vision for what you could even want. It's like Whitfield's like the ultimate influencer, right? What he'll tell you what you want.
You didn't even know it. He didn't even know. I mean, until he saw the Norwegians skiing down his mine hill, he didn't even know that was a thing he could sell. And then he did. Right.
And Banner never got there, No.
And Clyde tells him, he's a man of vision, which is how Whitfield referred to himself, and by saying that Banner had no vision. And Banner is like, it's not vision. It's that he sees into the greed of our hearts. He doesn't have vision. He's a predator. They're different things. A man of vision feels like something to be looked up to and respected and revered and applauded. I don't think we want to do any of those things for Whitfield. So let's not call him a man of vision. Let's call him predatory.
I'm willing to say influencer in terms of that being like predatory.
Well, very
like
2025.
Yeah, because
it's keeping up with the Joneses. You know,
yeah.
We've had that phrase our entire life. I actually don't know when keeping up with the Joneses became into the lexicon, but I feel like our entire lives, the idea of our parents would say, "Oh, I'm not keeping up with the Joneses," or "I'm not getting." But today, with social media and the perfect Insta families and Facebook families and everyone puts this version of their idyllic life, it has really engendered this idea of why don't I have? Why do they have? I have a better job than them. I make more money than them. You know, this, that, the other thing, but I see them doing these things. Why not me?
You know what else I think is horrible is the social media in general. Like, we have got Facebook and we've got Instagram and we've got all these things where everybody is sitting around with all this FOMO, which is exactly, I mean, this is what Kara's talking about. She's like, basically, we're all infected with FOMO, and that's what's going on, and everybody is constantly peeping on what everybody else has. And the second they realize it, like, think about it, Banner coming up over that hill and realizing how much land the Duttons have, it was like, not fair, you know? But it's no different than seeing someone on, like, an elaborate vacation on Facebook where you're like, no fair, like, why don't I get to go? I work hard.
Yeah. And then the confusion and bewilderment that Banner had when he said, "You don't even run your cattle up to the mountain. You literally don't even use it. So why can't we use it?" Which is probably a fair argument. But at the same time, Jacob's argument is it's ours. You don't need to know what we're doing with it. That's not your business. It's ours. Tough titty, said the kitty, the milk is no good. And that's it. And Banner just can't get that through his head. But here's the thing. If Banner is to achieve the status that he seeks via Whitfield, and he gets himself into a position like the Duttons currently have and that he is envious of, you don't think he would have the same position as Jacob Dutton would have if someone else came seeking to use his land? I don't think he would be open arms, because then he becomes the prince high in the castle that his wife wants to make sure gets thrown and never far enough that he never, climbs back up. So we covet and we bitch and moan about what's not fair until we then have it. And then we appreciate what the other person's point of view used to be. And now we have that point of view. And it's a cycle, and it just feeds itself. It's just this Ouroboros that is just feeding itself over and over again.
I don't want to feel like totally depressed, but just nothing's changed. This is the way it is. This is what we're dealing with, and it hasn't changed. And that, oh my goodness, I think that's the thing that right now in this whole world that I'm most frustrated with. At least during their point of time, there was all these inventions. Like every day there's like new inventions and new things discovered, and new routes were like discovered to get places faster, and all these things. Like it seemed like things were progressing. Whether we can't say whether that was like good progress or not good progress, but things were moving forward. I feel like now we don't. I mean, you don't turn on the TV every day and see like, oh, here's the newest thing that was invented today. Here's the new cure. Here's the new whatever. It's like, no, you don't get to have new things. You don't get to have better things. You just have to fight and scrap for the things that we've kind of had for a long time.
But always be on the guard, because it may be old to you, but someone definitely wants to take it from you.
Yes.
Well,
definitely.
this delightful trip down human misery continues, because now we're going to come to the third and final part of this thesis statement that I had, that this episode was about doomed humanity from different points of view. We had Elsa, we had Kara, and Elizabeth, and now we're going to go to Tiona and Runs His Horse, who she's at her wit's end. She's lost the love of her life. She is young. Even before she knew Pete had died, she was asking her father, what are we doing? Where are we going? There's no place for us. She doesn't feel any better at the end of this episode. I would say she feels considerably worse. But let's listen to Runs His Horse here. This ends up being the final bit of wisdom he gives her. And is there value here? Is there a green bud shoot that we can look to and maybe plant around and hope for?
Life hasn't shown me many reasons to keep fighting for it.
I'll tell you the reason.
If you don't live, someday they won't remember we're even here. This world will need us someday. When white men concrete the whole world. And the world revolts. Men won't know how to live with the land, and she will need some of us to teach them.
Why teach them anything? They're the ones destroying it.
I was reminded listening to this when I was watching the episode of the news just last week or 2 weeks ago now, I guess, of the Rose Garden being concreted over at the White House. This was a theme, I don't know if you remember from mainline Yellowstone. John is trying to get Summer off of the last charge that she had. This is before they were formally like sleeping together, I guess. And he goes to the judge's office. And then it quickly devolves into a conversation about the world is going to hell in a handbasket. And the theme of it was that we were concreting over the world and that every nature was just being sealed under a pile of concrete. But if you leave it be for even a little bit, the grass starts shooting back up through that concrete. And you could try to suppress the land, but the land will continue to fight back and will continue to reclaim itself. And I think Runs His Horse's point of view here is interesting because in the same way Jacob is trying to convince Sheriff McDowell that war ain't preventable at this point, for Runs His Horse, the violent overthrow of the land of its people that are occupying it and destroying it, it's inevitable. It's not if it will happen. For him, it is when it will happen. And we need to be here. Our people, our descendants need to be here to teach those who are left how to live in accordance with the land again. There's some hope there. It's depressing, I think, that it is inevitable. And I think it feels inevitable. It feels inevitable maybe to me, but there is some hope there, or this idea of if you're gone, they'll never even remember we were here. So you need to stay on this planet so that people do remember and that we can rebuild down the road. Am I looking too granularly for hope? Is there something there to hang our hat on?
Knowing me as an individual, I always am clinging on to hope. And I mean, I can remember during Leftovers, I was more worried about like some of the characters getting their medications every day because I was like, oh no, please let this character be okay. I'm constantly hoping that things are going to work out. I think that Runs His Horse is very wise and he's seen a lot. And he, of anyone, has a point of view in this show that isn't getting quite as much attention really, but is really important to the overall, like, this is the turnover of the land. Like, this is how it works. And he explains a lot in just how life works, but his people, the way that he has had to be constantly displaced and trying to look for safety always. It's a totally different point of view, I think, than, say, the Duttons, right? Who feel like that they have, like, the law on their side. They feel like they have rights, you know, they have everything. Whereas, like, I feel like we have all of the Native American communities without that backing. You know, like, they're just constantly being, like, I mean, people just will come up at every episode. People come up. We see this with Pete. People just come up and just shoot you for no freaking reason. You know, you're doing nothing to nobody and nothing should happen to you. It's hard to hope, I guess, at the end of the day. That would be my summation. It's very hard to keep the hope in this world.
I agree. And I think this episode, again, just to tie it back in a bow, I think this episode was trying to tell us that. Maybe as a warning, maybe as a cautionary tale, maybe see these people from 100 years ago and see us today in them this is where we're headed. This is what is happening. And it's interesting, you know, you're 1,000% right of what was Pete doing? People just came up and shot him. That was Pete's entire reasoning, flawed as it was, about why he could split off and leave Runs His Horse in Tiona to go look for water. I'm one male Native American. They're looking for a girl and a group of 3.
Well, and also he has like the very normal rationale of, if I'm not hurting anyone, if I'm just going to get some water, like, I mean, nothing's going to happen to me. Why should anything happen to me? Let's say it that way. Nothing should happen to me. I can protect myself against like reasonable amount of danger, an animal or something like that. But this situation where it's like, you just can't even just exist. Let's say he wasn't with Tiona. These guys come upon them. I mean, he's just getting some water. Why? Why do they have any business doing this? It's a dismal, dismal life. And I think that Taylor, again, figuring out that this is nearing the end of this particular part of the series, I paused last night and I thought, we went through all of that torture and abuse with Tiona. It has to pay off. You know, like something has to happen where we understand how she fits into the story. We all know her last name's Rainwater. We all know the Rainwaters are up in the Yellowstone, come mainline Yellowstone. And we do think we have some nuggets to share with you guys about what we think is going to happen. But just generally speaking, like, think about how much abuse we had to see for her for what at the end of the day is going to probably be her storyline, which is kind of just becoming displaced from America is what I think is going to happen. But isn't that crazy that, I mean, that's what we had to see, all of this sexual abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, everything for that to be her ending of this entire series. That's kind of a shocker.
It is. Let's get there though, because you hit upon, I want to stay on Pete because Father Renaud and Kent discuss this exact thing, because Father Renaud has the same question you have. And I told you last week, I was seeing the sows of discord between these two. So I felt pretty good about the parting of the ways that they had, though I was surprised how it played out. But let's stay with Pete, Runs His Horse, Tiona, Father Renaud, and Marshal Kent.
Why did you kill him?
Because he ran.
Running is not a crime.
Yeah, running for me is.
All this death you make. And we are no closer to justice. You have been tasked to bring justice to a murderer! The murderer is you. It is you who needs justice. Your path is the walkway to perdition. And I shall not walk it with you.
Great. That's fine. Go fuck off back to Montana. You hear me, Father? Go fuck yourself.
Now you go scream with the devil.
Were you surprised that Father Renaud shoots him dead here? Not that they parted ways, but that they parted ways in such a final way.
Yes, and in such. I mean, I know that we have seen this priest be extremely violent and cruel and awful, but I didn't expect this because he's killing a member of law enforcement. He's killing the person who was supposed to be escorting him, going along to try to find this girl. I feel like he's actually kind of lost his mind. Like, I don't think that there's any ending here for him beyond having lost his mind and what ends up happening here, because I don't think that he is still with it. I think he's seen so many things. He's seen so much death. His brain is just broken. That's how I viewed it. So when he actually shoots him, I was like, oh my God, like you really, really snapped here.
I agree. I think this snaps him in a very final way, this interaction. But he doesn't offer repentance here to Kent. He just puts him down because he sees immediately that Kent is beyond repentance. He says the word perdition. He talks about perdition a couple of times in this episode, and justice. And the idea of you're not interested in justice. You're just interested in making death. You know, we're here to find a girl and bring a murder to justice with this girl. All you're killing are men and boys because your heart is just filled with murder and malice. And you need justice, he tells him.
Were you shocked?
Yeah. No, I absolutely was. I told you I felt them splitting up, but turning around and shooting him dead 3 times. I mean, he kills him and then advances on him and puts a final bullet in him, like execution style. This is a definitive, you know, you go scream with the devil. That's what he's saying as the strings are screeching up there at the end of that clip. He says, you go scream with the devil. Hardcore stuff. But this also, though, Father Renaud is interesting. And I think the way Sebastian Roche has played him has actually been pretty fascinating as a character because he is consistent with his code of justice. And his code of justice, very Hammurabi, is very violent. He has his idea of justice, and if he needs to shoot someone dead, smash someone's fingers, burn someone, mutilate someone in the name of Christ's savior and love, he absolutely will. And he doesn't find any discord in that. That all makes sense to him in his sense of justice. And again, I think he's very consistent with it. The thing is, though, this is a lawman. Like, he's right. And the reason I wanted to play this clip on the back of what you said was, what did Pete do? He ran. Running isn't a crime. Running from me is. And Kent, and I had to cut it out because the clip would have been too long. Kent goes on to say, he's a Crow. He's a Comanche. I can tell. If you've been around enough of them, I can tell. Kent really revealed himself to be not just psychotic and unhinged and have a real bloodlust, but a real racist, a real these aren't humans, which we did see the cavalier way that he kills Tiona's grandmother way back in season 1. Yeah. We just didn't appreciate how bloodlusty and inhuman he really was.
I had to go back to that scene yesterday myself. I was taking a walk and I was thinking about Kent and thinking about how he managed to show these like signs. They were like flashes because of concern, I guess I want to say, like, you know, just snapping out like that at the grandmother and just doing that and killing her, which was shocking. And nobody expected that to happen. And so maybe this was just such a slow burn, you know, starting from way back that the, you know, Father Renaud was like, this is crazy. And like, you are basically little by little working up to the point where I'm going to say, you've gone too far. This is too much. And he actually hits the limit with Father. And I guess I have a big fat question mark now about if you kill someone in law enforcement like that, what is Father Renaud thinking? Or is this just completely and totally like he's lost his mind? Because, I mean, he has to answer to that. He's not above the law. You know, I'm trying to think of like, under what rules is he operating? Because it's not the law and it's not the church.
I think he would argue that the Comanche massacre, the one that Fawcett was so turned off by, and I think really put her on the other side from Kent and Father Renaud, that was him. That was Kent. The murder of this boy Pete was the final straw. I couldn't abide it anymore. So in a 1924 frontier justice kind of self-defense or ends justify the means, in a lucid moment, I think that's probably what he would say, but I don't think he's lucid here. I don't think he's not thinking about the law. He's thinking about God's kingdom. I am the light, which he's going to say later on in this episode. You are the darkness. You cannot hide from me. And this gun and my arm holding it is the truth swinger and truth determiner of justice. I think Father Renaud sees himself as the arbiter of justice. This is him carrying that out, which is because I think he is unhinged now. I think he's gone too far around the bend.
We have to remember, too, that Father Renaud is not used to anyone questioning him. He is the head of that school. He is the head of everything. There's no one above him that we ever saw. So to have Kent, who was supposed to be, initially brought on to help him complete this task. It seems like it all turned around on him, where he's like, now I'm being screamed at by this murderer. Like everything has gone insane. I am Father Renaud, no one's going to talk to me like this. And I actually think that there's part of it is just straight up ego. Like, I'm not having people talk to me this way. This is not the way I'm treated. So you're finished.
Also, go back to the campsite fire where Father Renaud is trying to talk about, and he's trying to position himself as the enlightened one, where they're talking about whether, black people should be able to marry white women, which was a law that was being discussed. And the two marshals laugh and they're so grossed out by the idea. And Father Renaud talks about the Moors and how they've managed to, be in power for hundreds of years in Europe. I think there's a sense of Father Renaud where he sees himself A, as enlightened, which is his Frenchiness.
Definitely more worldly. But really, I think he really sees himself as a shining beacon of God's love. I really do. From his point of view, I think he really thinks of himself as God's messenger on this earth to separate the wheat and the chaff. If you seek God's love and you accept him into your heart at gunpoint, you are saved. And if you aren't, run with let's go scream with the devil. and I think it's that simple for him. So let's put a pin in Father Renaud, because I agree with you 1,000%. I think he is unhinged. I think he is snapped at this point. And literally the next time we see him, he's literally stalking in the bush. He's wearing his full cassock, stalking in the bush. And when he speaks again, he's spitting and just crazed, this is it. I cannot keep myself together one bit longer.
Let's pivot back to Tiona and Runce's horse. Now they're waiting. The sun's going down. Runce's horse is making excuses for why Pete hasn't come back yet. The stars are different here. He would get lost or tricked by them. So rather than trying it, Pete is bedding down and he'll come to us in the morning. But Tiona knows. Tiona knows in her heart, right? You picked up on that, I think.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. I guess we're supposed to feel like her and Pete had grown enough of a bond. We do know that they slept together, but beyond just that, emotionally, it seemed like they had actually grown a bond together. And so she was claiming to be close enough to him to be able to feel the fact that he was not okay and perhaps not even alive anymore is what she could feel. You know me, I definitely believe in that kind of stuff. I 100% feel like you can feel those types of things. But I was a little surprised that for a shorter time, Tiona's just so young and everything. It would work with Alex or Spencer or something like that, but she's just so young. And their relationship was just so short that it felt like, oh, that was awfully quick,
That's how first love is, though. It feels like the most important thing in the world that no one has ever understood what we feel more than no one's ever had, right? That's always first love. Young love is no one has ever felt the way we feel. And I think Tiona and Pete were very much that. As soon as he freaking promised her that he would come back, it's like, y'all are in the middle of a Shakespeare play right now. It is not going to end well. So we see
Tiona's entire story is just one big tragedy.
It's just tragedy and trauma. It's just tragedy and trauma. You and I talk all the time on the pod, but really off the pod, about generational memory and in this case, generational trauma. Think about Thomas Rainwater. Think about the residents of Broken Rock Reservation in mainline Yellowstone, and how oppressed and beaten down they are, how poverty-stricken they are. Even in modern times, the disparity in how Duttons live and the Jenkinses of the world live and Marquette Equities live. And then you have the reservation right next door. That's generational trauma, and you're seeing sources of it here. The missionary school and the abuse there. Everything that Tiona has had maybe 7 minutes of happy screen time in 2 seasons worth of show, in 16 plus hours of show.
It's hard when you reflect on how much she has gone through. It feels awful. And I mean, are you okay with this? Are you okay with how they use this character? Are you okay with where we think they're going to end her character?
I think for the most part, yes. because I think Tiona really has been educational. I think this storyline, more than any other Native American storyline that we've seen from Taylor in mainline Yellowstone in 1883, both of which Native Americans played a part, a significant part. I think it was through Tiona Rainwater that he really educated viewers. Like, you think you know what life was like for Native Americans as this country was settled and moved further west into their territory, but you don't know. And I'm going to show you horrors, and just imagine these are the horrors I can show you legally on television. And what probably happened is probably worse. And so from that, I think it is a worth it storyline. I think some storylines, painful and hard to watch, still have value. And I think Tiona is a great example of that versus some other things that we have seen in 1923 where it's more for shock or the value we're supposed to get out of it could have been handled otherwise. There's no way to, and excuse the phrase, there's no other way to whitewash Tiona's experience without showing you the horror.
Right.
Imagine all things they cut away from, Caroline, that they didn't show us.
I know. And I just have such a soft heart. So, I think by the end of this, if you connect back with the mainline Yellowstone show and you understand where ancestors, Rainwater, all the Rainwater lineage ends up, then I guess you can feel pretty good about it. With only one episode left, I just don't know how this is going to go.
Let's talk about their ending. So finally, they see the carrion birds. They go look for Pete. They see the vultures in the sky. The truth hits. Tiona keeps asking a question. She asks it several times. The conversation is in Crow, so I didn't record it because it wouldn't have had any value here. But essentially, she keeps asking, what do we do now? And at first, Runtusworth is saying, there's nothing we can do. We can't bury him. We have nothing to dig into the sand. We can't move the body. It's just where they are. They literally can't bury him. All right, problem number one. Pete is going to just have to kind of lay here, which is sad. 2, where do we go now? She asks again, and Runtusworth looks at the scene, sees dead Kent, sees dead Pete, tells her, Pete gave his life to free you. You are free from this now. Now we can go home. Which is not how it happened at all, but it's a nice memory, which actually goes to Whitfield actually has a whole spiel that we're going to talk about in a little bit about truth is written by those who win, which is Whitfield didn't come up with that. History is written by the victors is an old phrase, but Whitfield talks about it in this episode that as long as we win, we make the truth what it is. And so if the truth becomes, because the only people standing are Tiona and Runtusworth at this point, then the truth can be that Pete gave his life to free Tiona from this. But Runtusworth, why has he forgotten about Father Renaud? Later, he says it here, we can go home now, you are free. Then later on, he makes the fire. They'll see, Tiona says in her flat voice, because she's given up. There's no one left to see, Runtusworth says. We're free again. Dude, there's another person there. You haven't seen the dead priest, have you? How did he forget about this? Not that it would have made a difference in the end. Father Renaud was right there in the bush. He didn't need a fire to know where they were. He found them. But was Runtusworth too high on his own supply of false optimism and hope that he literally forgot about the priest?
I don't feel like he forgot about the priest as much as, again, remember we were talking about like, okay, so under what laws or whatever is she being collected up on? And so I think Runtusworth is working off of the idea that the law, the actual law, who is chasing you is dead. So we don't need to be worrying about it anymore. But you're right. He's not thinking about it from the standpoint of these other rules that have been pushed upon them in terms of these,
the marshals wouldn't even be involved if not for Father Renaud making a case.
Yeah. I feel like Runtusworth misinterprets the situation for sure. He is definitely not understanding that the priest is not going to stop chasing her, and he's got his own revenge situation going on. So I think he honestly thought it was going to end with Kent being killed, because it seemed like then the law was dealt with. So I think generally it seemed like he thought this entire thing would end once the law was out of the picture.
I agree, but I think also there was a little bit of tired dad heart here. his death is so anticlimactic, not the most anticlimactic. That will definitely be young Jack Dutton, and pointless. I think he wins all of those awards, but runs his horse, gets off one shot, but then he's just instantly dead. One shot, dead. There's no hero death for him, and he was sleeping too soundly, and he was too slow in the uptake. I don't want to say I was mad at Runs His Horse here at the end, or that he failed his daughter here at the end, but there's a little bit of me that feels like he was too slow here at the end, and he failed his daughter here at the end. In the end, she couldn't count on her dad, and that made me sad. That made me, as a dad, that made me very sad, how quickly he was gone from the earth in that scene. Am I being too hard on Runs His Horse? Maybe I am.
No, I mean, he went through a lot. We've been with him for a while. And, you know, I think you're right. As dad, I mean, we give so much respect, and anything that Harrison Ford has to say, we're like, oh, yes, this is very important business. And he is the equivalent, you know, of Jacob, you know, but in the Native American storylines. And I don't feel like he feels like the same level of dad in that regard. And so when he didn't manage to protect her, it feels awful, but I didn't equate it as much as like Jacob, which is weird because you're right. Like they should have been presented and shown protecting their people. Now, to be completely fair, did you feel the same way when Jacob took the bullets and didn't protect his family during the ambush? Like, were you like, oh gosh, you know,
no,
these men
because
shouldn't
he was
protect
fighting.
these women?
I mean, he was instantly in the fight. They were greatly outnumbered in the ambush.
Ambushed.
They were
right?
both ambushed, but it wasn't like a one-on-one fight. I'm saying I was disappointed because Runs His Horse was literally sleeping on the job because Father Renaud was out there. Whether or not he found Kent dead, he didn't know that the other marshal was dead. He would have no reason to know that. He saw one dead marshal. He knew 3 people were chasing them. He should still be on the lookout for 2 guys chasing him.
Yeah.
And he's sleeping. Sure why he's sleeping with a fire. I think he was tired, but as a dad to dad, it hurt. It bothered me a little bit.
Okay. I'll go with that.
I think in the end, he didn't appreciate what she had actually been through. Maybe she never told him the extent of what she
They never showed us, you know, with those conversations.
They traveled from Wyoming all the way from Montana down to Texas, though. There was long conversations.
They had a lot of time to talk. Yeah, that's true. But, you know, when she was with Pete, she was thinking about Pete. You know, and that's so true. Maybe those weren't the conversation. They're not going to talk about.
Or maybe she just wanted to heal, and if I didn't talk about it, maybe it didn't happen.
Right.
I don't know. All right, we got to finish. We're going to finish Tina off, guys. This is a hard clip. This is a trigger clip, but we got to play it. This is the repent scene. This is Renaud has killed her father. Now he is upon her with a gun as she wakes up, startled. It's the end of it where it really crescendos. There's lots of screaming. There's lots of yelling. It's very loud, but we have to play it. So be prepared.
Repeat after me, my child. Dear God, I beg forgiveness for my sins with all my heart. Repeat it, child. Repeat it!
I will not.
I am trying to save your soul and to free you from eternal perdition.
I'm not sorry. You be sorry. You beg for forgiveness. You beg.
You are renouncing salvation.
I renounce it.
And to the devil with you.
He's very big on to the devil with you. Go scream with the devil. He has this gun is an express train to hell for Father Renaud.
It definitely is.
The way that clip starts, and the clip actually starts before that. He starts with, I am the light, you are the darkness, you cannot hide from me. And then he goes into a very long thing about the origin of the baptism and repentance ceremony that he's about to force her to go through at gunpoint. But he sounds crazy here. Repeat after me, my child.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't hear me. Repeat after me. Repeat after me. It's
okay.
like you sound crazy, bro.
No,
but
he's over the edge, and probably fair that he's over the edge. I mean, if you think about everything he has seen and everything that has gone on, now do we need to have any like sympathy for him? No, I don't have any sympathy for him, but I can understand how a human psyche could break after seeing as many things as he saw. He was like the grand high poobah of the school. He was sitting pretty in his comfortable office, doing his thing, handing out punishments. Now he has been on, this trail ride situation, hunting down this girl for weeks. And
months.
It's just, yeah, I mean, at this point, yes, it's been months. But I mean, like this portion of this season that we're seeing, it's been weeks. And I feel like it's a really good lesson in kind of no matter how your brain is set up to begin with, there are a series of things that can happen that can absolutely break you. And as much as you're right, Tiona, how proud should we be of her that she's not broken? She's still willing to fight. And some of that I got to give to youth, right? I got to give to youthful optimism. I've got to give to
or flaunting authority, right? Well, flouting.
Well, like
authority.
she doesn't know what she doesn't know.
Right.
She doesn't even realize how much more she's got to go. And now she's got nobody. And all right. So is this the appropriate time to talk about where we think Tiona's going?
Yeah, I think so. So in the end, she ends up burning his face. Just for stat heads out there, I'm a little bit of a stat head myself. She burns his face. She stabs him 5 times, and she shoots him twice. That is a very thorough killing that Tiona gives to Father Renaud. Maybe he goes scream with the devil now.
Yeah, exactly.
Now what? Where does Tiona go, Caroline?
So in looking up some old Yellowstone, I mean, this is back from the pilot, we find out that Chief Rainwater, actually was adopted and didn't know who his parents were. And in fact, thought he was Mexican. He didn't even realize he did not grow up on the reservation. He didn't know that he's a part of the Crow tribe. So what I think is happening is that where Tiona is located now and how we think the lineage is going to work is she's going to head south and go to Mexico. And that's how she's going to outrun the law and somehow find some sort of refuge there. I have no idea how they're going to do that in one episode. I have no idea how we're going to show her settled. There's got to be flash forwards and some sort of flashbacks and something we're going to be working with here because it's too fast. But I think that knowing that Chief Rainwater has this history, was adopted, didn't even know he was Crow until he was 18, didn't grow up on the reservation, thought he was Mexican. Everything points to Tiona's bringing the family line to Mexico. Do you think that seems right?
I think that's a great call. It's a good connection and a good solid thread back to Thomas Rainwater. Like you said, like very like pilot of first introduction of Thomas Rainwater, where he is talking about his return to Broken Rock, which he never even knew was a part of his ancestry. And I doubt we see very much of Tiona next week, or at least this version of Tiona. My guess is, like you said, maybe a flash forward. I think Tiona's story will probably be picked up in the next installment of Yellowstone, whether it's 1944 or some other decade, however Taylor ends up playing it out. Because I think Tiona's story that we were trying to tell in these 2 seasons of 1923 ended here. She was captive and abused at the missionary school. She killed the nuns. She ran from there. She tried to go home. She couldn't go home. She met up with Hank. They got a little further. Hank was able to send word to her father. She met up with her father. They went on the run because they were being pursued. She has outlasted, outwitted, outplayed her pursuers, the church, and unfortunately her love and her father. She has no family left. She has no one pursuing her. It's the end of her story. This is the end of the arc. It's not the end of her story in that we, the audience, want to know, but I think for what they have to fit in to a finale episode, assuming that we're not going to get another bite at the apple, I can't see very much more time being spent to Tiona.
It's okay. I'm okay with right now.
I think at the end I'm okay with
on.
it because it is not a happy ending, but now she is free.
Well, hold up. You say it's not a happy ending. this is all relative. She's alive. Renat is dead.
But so is her father, and so is her. So is
I know that. I know that.
Right.
But
yes, perspective. That's true.
You got to have perspective, because the only point of all of this, and I guess that's what I'm trying to say, like her father and Pete and Hank and all those people, they were always only presented as support system for Tiona. They were never elevated like I'm saying Jacob was. Like, as much as you're saying that's her father and her father he was never presented like the savior father that was coming in to do all this. It was always her lead with this secondary support of these various men. So in that regard, I mean, if she's the last one standing, it's not happy, but she wins.
It's a place to start from and start over from. So, her questions in this episode of what do we do now? Where do we go now? And runs his horse. He was wrong earlier in the episode where he says it, but it's right now. Now she is free. She is good to start whatever is next for her. She doesn't have to look over her shoulder, or at least not because of this.
I mean, do you think that's true though? I mean, does this wipe the slate clean? I was trying to ask this last episode to say like, okay, so if we get rid of Kent, but Mamie knows.
I think she's going to be much more satisfied when she finds a dead Pete and a dead Kent and then a dead Father Renaud not too far away. I think that's going to be the extent of her asking questions.
I hope that's true. But to be fair, there is still people who know,
For sure. But people who are not motivated to go chase Tiona.
I think this has got to be over,
Even with presented with what she allegedly did. Remember Anders the cowboy who had spent time with her. His question was not, my God, what a monster. I'll help you. I'll do anything to find her. His question, knowing this young lady, having spent time with her and smiling her, right? I mean, she was cowboying. She was with Pete and her dad. That person was not the murderer, bloodlusty murderer of 5 people that Anders was being presented with by the priest and Marshal Kent. So his question was, why? So even yes, there are people that know, but the people that still know, I think they're more curious about what did Father Renaud do? What did Marshal Kent do? Talk about the descent and madness of Father Renaud. I think it goes back to when Kent first grabs the little girl, grabs the teenage or young woman, and then grabs the smaller child to get a rise out of the Comanches for information, and then runs them down anyway.
Running
I think that's
the little boy
of
over with the horse.
Right.
I think that was a whole moment.
And then that night, remember, he comes out of the bush, right? Screaming and firing his gun until the chamber was empty to find he had killed a child. I think all of those things, I think that was the beginning of his unraveling, but also the beginning of seeing that Kent is just here to murder. He's not here to find justice. And I think the storyline is over. I think the storyline is over, which I think probably means we don't get very much Tiona next week, or at least not this version of Tiona. Oh, Jack Dutton. Jack Dutton is told to protect his wife and protect his aunt, to protect the house. That is your job in this Bring Spencer home plan. Jack Dutton immediately abandons his post. For glory, for youth, for ego, who can say? Who can ever say why Jack Dutton does what Jack Dutton does? I think he knows he's wrong, and I think he knows he's wrong because he doesn't go to the house first to tell Elizabeth or to tell Aunt Cara that he's thought about it. He really feels like they need another gun at Livingston train station. I'm going to ride and try and catch up with them. That's what someone who was still flouting the order they were given, but had at least considered it and was acting maturely would do. He just rides off. Leaving the guys at the gate.
So disappointed at him. I was like, Jack, this is the most immature thing I've seen you do. And you have been Captain Immature. And this is awful. The second he did that, I was like, this is ridiculous. When we talk about understanding how to live on the ranch, understanding how to live with nature, understanding how to live during this time, I feel like he is one of those people who just like, he cannot stop bucking the system in a way that's like, you are doomed. Like, we knew he was going to die because he's just such a flighty.
He's a child.
he doesn't follow any rules. I mean, Jacob straight says, like, this is what you need to do. This is the most important thing. And he cannot follow that. Jack, I felt horrible about him. Just horrible. And even to the last second, he thinks these guys are like good guys and totally fine. And like he's that not understanding his position in the world and not understanding where he should be. And I think it was one of the most pathetic deaths, actually, that we've had on this show.
I rewrote several times from my notes. I had very strong words for Jack in my notes, and I rewrote them for the written notes that I do for the show. But in the end, I still came up with, R.I.P. Jack, your death was as silly and mature as you were. It was an anticlimactic death that felt very deserved because you always felt like a child playing at adult things. So you didn't deserve a big dramatic shootout death. You really didn't. Gun at your holster while you're showboating and false claiming that you're a close number 2 to your cousin is exactly how someone like Jack Dutton dies. Of course, I don't want to see him dead, and I definitely don't want a Dutton down. But man, I feel like this was coming from a mile away. This was maybe the most predictable death. And in this sad, pathetic fashion. I think pathetic is a perfect word. I think you nailed it on the head.
Yeah, because he cannot help himself. Poor Elizabeth. I don't even know what to say. We are left with a bunch of women who are in bad shape in this episode. And I don't know. I don't know how she manages to look back and not be like, I made a horrible choice in Jack Dutton.
Really, in every way. I mean, the only thing that had been bolstering her spirits was being pregnant again, but now without Jack there, now she's pregnant in a place she doesn't want to be, in a life she doesn't want to live.
It's all that.
It's all of that. I don't even know what to say. The only thing that came to mind was, like Banner said last week at the train station, just what a waste. What a waste.
Exactly. That's how it felt to me. The second that I saw this all going down, I was like, Jack, for God's sake. You wanted to be numbers, essentially, and you became just like an NPC. Like, you're just the saddest thing. Like, you never were main character energy.
Remember in season 1, where after Jacob has barely survived and he's sitting out taking sun out on like a little fire pit area, and Jack is all piss and vinegar of, we've got to retaliate, we've got to fight. And Jacob's like, we've got to wait for Spencer to get home. The men need someone to lead them. And Jack, with a straight face, said, I can lead them. And Jacob, rightfully, and I give Jacob credit, he was like, no, you can't. No one's going to follow you. You're a child and immature and literally wet behind the ears. And he was right. And Jack was so bent out of shape by that. But in all that time, and now we have gone half a year maybe since then, maybe even a little more, somewhere between 6 to 9 months probably since that conversation took place. And he learned nothing. He learned nothing. To say nothing of the fact of, not only did he not go back to the house to at least be a man to tell his wife and aunt that he was going and leaving his post, that he was very specifically designated to protect the most important things in any of their lives, your wife, your unborn child, and your aunt. But there's 3 men guarding the gate, the entryway to any harm coming to the Yellowstone. He leaves. 2 guys. 1 guy now has to go tell Zane and Kara that Jack ran off. So in an instant, we went from 3 people guarding the gate to 1 guy guarding the gate in the dead of night. So in addition to leaving your post, you also literally hurt the defense of the place that you were also abandoning. Just a total loser. I'm
mad at Jack. He turned out to be a really crummy character he was just so flighty. I mean, I'll never get over it.
Don't we know this guy? That's the thing. That's the thing that maybe pisses me off the most, is that I feel like we know tons of Jacks. I feel like everyone knows a Jack where they think their gun in their holster is larger than it actually is, and that they know how to use it better than they actually do.
For sure.
Take that for the metaphor that it's meant to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that if you look at the comparison, that Jack is older than Tiona and supposedly more mature in a lot of ways. When you compare those two and you look at them and you're like, you guys are probably within a couple of years of each other. She is like survival central and he is like just Amelia Bedelia, just like a happening upon the next weird obstacle that he may get out of, but only because of some sort of accident, some sort of extra something. But like, honestly, what a disappointment of a character. We should move on from Jack because
and
he's a bummer.
And also, no one knows because they tie up his body and run it off and he runs it off with the woods and take his saddle off. No one at the house knows because all Kara knows is because the guy comes and tells him that he left. So
I think the horse will run back to the house. I think that's how they'll know.
But they still won't be able to verify it. It's not like they can't call out to Livingston and be like, Jack's horse, did he come? And
but I think that's like code. I mean,
I guess,
a horse that comes back with no riders
is a code at this time. That's probably right.
Yeah.
So there's lots of people talking about Spencer in this episode. We played the clip earlier on between Jacob and McDowell, which just to give you a little clip so you guys can get this audio clean for yourselves if you just want to play for your ringtone or whatever.
I swear to God, I will burn his fucking house to the ground with him in it.
I don't know. I feel like as we're approaching tax time, I feel like that's going to be a useful clip for a lot of people.
Nice.
So they're talking about him, but we get to the speakeasy and Banner, who has taken up residence in the speakeasy in Bozeman, he's being told of Spencer for the first time. Somehow no one ever made mention of Spencer other than a cryptic message from Kara to Banner in season 1 of, I've seen your nephew. I'm not intimidated by him, thinking of Jack, and man, were you right about that? And she's like, not that one. You haven't met this one. So he's never really heard about Spencer by name or any of the deeds, but he's getting his lesson here through the loose lips of the switchboard. He finds out that he was first infantry at Argonne, which we see several times in this episode has weight with the people who hear it. It definitely has an effect on Banner, and he goes from bravado, what's one guy, to, oh shit, this is something I have to be worried about. Also in the speakeasy, now we have 2 livestock agents that are on Banner's payroll. There's Clyde, and then there's the new guy. Clyde is the ginger big guy who shoots Jack, and then he's got a new guy. So now there's 2 livestock commissioners who are betraying the Duttons actively, which is not great. So from the speakeasy, we have to deal with a little bit of Whitfield. I'm going to play this clip. There is some spanking going on here in the background. I couldn't edit it out. Let's just focus on the conversation between Whitfield and Banner.
One man, Banner? What can one man do?
Lead other men. Teach them tactics. This is why Jacob has done nothing. He's been waiting.
Is this nephew here now?
Arrives by train.
Then I suggest you meet him when he steps off.
Our men headed there now.
Did you find a little sanctuary on the border?
I did.
Put him there, and put the rest of them right beside him.
The sheriff's on his side.
And the courts are on mine. Your only worry is failing to kill them all. History isn't a retelling of events in our past. History is events the victorious chose to retell. We're not subject to our deeds, Banner. We decide the deeds, and our decisions become the truth.
I cannot believe that we cover a show in which you had to say there's going to be spanking in the background, but just ignore that. And I can't believe I just had to listen to that spanking again. Like, I am so barfed out by Whitfield and this entire thing. And again, to figure out that this is like the end of the line. Oh my God. Here's what I got on the Banner Whitfield front. The only thing I can think of is that the whole prostitution storyline got gross enough for Banner where he will actually stop and think and be like, this is not a guy that I can be around. And maybe that's actually going to cause some sort of turning their backs on Whitfield. But man, this is horrific.
You know, that's someone's daughter.
That she is. And if her mother were here, I'd do the same to her.
Let's talk about that first, because I do want to go back to the first clip we played, but because you brought it up, I think that is key, because Banner is disgusted by the scene. He is uneasy. He is looking sideways at it and finally can't say anything. And he carried a naked dead girl down the stairs and then took her to the train station and tossed her over a ravine. So there's a lot he's willing to do for Whitfield in the cause for which he has committed himself. But even this scene is too much for Banner to hold his tongue. And I was thinking when he says, that's someone's daughter, and Whitfield, without even blinking, says, yeah, and if her mother was here, I'd do the same to her. Banner has a wife. Banner's wife is a mother, not a mother to a daughter, but Banner's son could easily have been a daughter. It is impossible for Banner, as they have drawn him, I think, to not be thinking that could be my wife or that could be my child there. And this man does not care. Am I missing the mark there? Are you picking up these are the same kind of scenes I was picking up with between Father Renaud and Ken.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that Banner is definitely becoming, if not already becoming disgusted with all of this. And I think just realizing how far he's willing to go. I mean, I think that that's a theme that we had said that that was the point of this storyline, is to continuously show that he's just willing to go further and further and further. And freakishly, it's not going to stop. Like, we just have to still be watching this. How many friggin' episodes in are we still watching this storyline when every other storyline is like moving forward, but not that one?
Well, interesting you say that, because this was the first episode in all of these episodes that we have had to watch with Whitfield and Lindy and the quote unquote lessons he's giving her. And for the first time, they're really talking about the lessons in manipulation. And this is the first episode, second to last episode maybe of the series, where Whitfield kind of reveals why. Why is he doing this? He's literally training Lindy in how to manipulate people via pleasure and pain principles, to get them to surrender their body so that you can make them corruptible and make them do anything you want. And when Banner comes in, he laughs to Banner. He says, I'm so proud of her, to Lindy, about Lindy. Like, she is going to be so useful to me in corrupting politicians, in manipulating politicians into doing what I want. And so, too little too late, for sure, probably, but at least they finally gave some kind of reasoning as to, this is not just for the kink that Whitfield clearly has for this kind of sexual play and the power domination of it, which is, it's about that, it's not really about sex. There is a point here, it seems. He is literally training a sex assassin in Lindy to do his bidding on the politics side. Did that move you at all? Did that validate all of this for you in any kind of way, or is it way too little too late?
Okay, so the actual concept is fine. The way that it was visually shown to us, not okay with. Never going to be okay with. Never, ever going to be okay with. Taylor could have bothered to use some better storytelling and bothered to actually show this in a way that was more sophisticated and more complicated. And you could just hear something in the next room, or we could have like hit on it for like a second and left the room, kind of thing. Like, you could have gotten the same idea. Here's the other thing I'm going to be angry about. If we only get 7 hours of this season, then I am livid at the amount of time we spent with prostitutes getting beat. Livid. Because I wanted to spend more time with Kara. I wanted to spend more time with Jacob. I wanted to spend time with Spencer and Alex and Elizabeth. I wanted to spend more time with Zane and his wife and their kids. These are the people I care about. This side of it is like the trash side of the story that I don't need to spend any time with. I could have understood what Whitfield was doing in a conversation, and they spend plenty of time doing off-screen choices to show us things that, we just are told, hey, that happened, but we don't actually see it.
Or not even told and just have to guess that had happened.
Yeah. And so to choose to give it so much screen time, I don't agree with.
This is the line, right? This is the line between why, hard as it may be, is Tiona's storyline valuable and this one isn't. That one had an aspect of education, and there are people who live their life in suffering and in trauma, and giving us the perspective of what a win may be. to be the last one standing, versus this, which is also very hard and hard to watch, hard to digest. We just allowed a comment on our Facebook group about why they had to recircle back around after one of the sex workers was dead. Why are we now replacing it with Mabel and continuing the storyline? So it's not the same. Tiona's trauma and horrors are not the same as Whitfield's kink lessons in manipulation with Lindy and Christy and now Mabel. I want to go back to the one-man audio clip that we played, because I was surprised, and I'm curious if you had this same reaction to this. His reaction to hearing about Spencer was, one man, Banner? What can one man do? And Banner is ready with that question. He's like, he can lead. He can inspire. He can be a fucking problem, Whitfield. Whitfield is one man. Whitfield very much he thinks he is the smartest guy in the room. I am surprised he would say, what can one man do? I think Whitfield has built his entire fortune around what one man can do. I don't know. Either he is not as smart as we thought, or he is just so high on his own supply that he doesn't think any other one man can do what he can do. Okay, so yes, he views himself as the head, but I think he thinks he's got a lot of underlings. So in the grand scheme of things, if he's claimed to only be one man doing everything he's doing, that would actually be pretty disingenuous, because, I mean, he has Banners and he has the red beard man and he's got all these other people and he's got a lot of other little henchmen. Right, but not for brain trust, though, right? And that's how I was taking it, was we're setting up Spencer as...
Okay, but that's a way to take it. But what I'm saying is, like, if you look at him, he could view it as like he's got like a whole hierarchy of people who work for him and stuff like that. So this is just one guy, and what could one guy accomplish?
Right. I guess I was taking it more of, if Whitfield was giving an acceptance speech, I don't think Whitfield is the kind of guy who would say, I would be nowhere without my sheepers and my miners and all of the sex workers that I employ and abuse. I think he would say, I'm smarter than all of you motherfuckers, and I have what I have, and I control you because of this big brain I've got up here.
Yes, but he's still got the posse. Spencer doesn't even have anyone to turn to and say, because of my big brain, that's why we're here. Like, he doesn't even have anybody
reason, though,
to
because
turn to.
If Whitfield didn't know about this one man, what else does he maybe not know about? I'm just saying, it was very cavalier for a guy who's so crafty, and his only thing, because he is not brawn, he's only brains, he's only chess, right? He's not playing checkers, right? He's just playing the high thought game. For him to not be startled by this piece of information he didn't have. You were so deep in the Duntons' assholes that you're paying their taxes on their land, but you didn't know about the Congressional Medal of Honor award winner nephew who is making his way home. I don't know. It seemed very like maybe Whitfield is more distracted by his bedroom shenanigans than he realizes. Maybe he is not actually paying attention or as on the edge of the knife as he thinks. And I think that's a crack in the armor. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. Maybe I just want things to work out next week. But I think this reveals a hubris and or an inattention to the actual thing going on.
I agree with you that this is a crazy distraction with the prostitutes, and it is something that obviously he thinks he's better than everybody, for sure. And whatever people he collects up are the people who, I mean, look at how much he's saying Lindy is amazing and awesome and all this stuff, because it's like part of his little team. I don't know what kind of information people could have during this time. We talked about the fact that, no internet, no background, no way to find out stuff. The only way that he could know would be by asking around. Like, he would have had to have someone ask the sheriff about the Duttons family tree, or somebody had to tell him a little bit more. And I'm not quite sure who that would be besides the sheriff. Like, you would almost need a drinking buddy of the sheriff's to also be, in Whitfield's posse to kind of whisper information to him, because where else would you get that info that Spencer existed and all that stuff? Like, where are you going for that info?
Obviously, he has spies in McDowell's office. You would think the conversation. I mean, sure, McDowell clearly Spencer doesn't know he won a Congressional Medal of Honor, but McDowell does, the sheriff does. I'm just saying, it seems for someone who did so much research on the Duttons, this seems to be a glaring hole for him to not be aware of. I mean, he killed the man's brother. He didn't think there was no other brother to Jack when I had him killed in that ambush.
It reveals a limitation of Whitfield's, which I think is important for us to see. Like, he's not all powerful, can touch everything, can get everywhere. Like, obviously we can still surprise him, and that's good to know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's I think the element of surprise is about the only thing they have going for them, because they're certainly going to be outmanned. I mean, when they get to the Livington train station, McDowell is sleepy. He's a sleepy boy on the bench. Sheriff, what are you doing? And he's talking about
so surprising.
Hemorrhoids with the fish hook in the morning. Sheriff McDowell, good God, man.
So gross. Oh my God.
I like that him and Jacob agree this is a terrible place for a gunfight, and that's before passengers start showing up. But I like how Jacob, he went outside, he looked up and down the tracks. He, this is a guy who knows what he is doing and who has been there and who has done that, has fought for a thing he wants to protect. And I feel like maybe even more so than the sheriff. But it's going to be interesting to watch these two engage in battle, because at some point there's going to be a war and there is going to be gunfighting happening at this Livington train station. I think that's pretty clear. Murray's Bar. So when they realize they're going to have a little bit of a wait for Spencer to show up, Jacob says, I'm going to go across the street to Murray's Bar. And that's when McDowell says, I need you in a bar all day, like I need my doctor poking around my hemorrhoid with a fish hook, which Jacob rightfully calls him on. Anyway, Murray's Bar, real place. It's a real place. Murray, go to murrayblock.com/Murray Bar. There's like a little Murray empire, but there really is a Murray's Bar right across the street from what is now his historical Livington train depot. But yeah, it's right there. You can go visit. You can go throw back a couple drinks. You can stay at the Murray Hotel. So,
very cool.
Yeah, out in Livingston, Montana. I want to talk a little bit about Carib and Jacob. There are two clips here. One is very sweet, and then one is sweet on its face, but I think has some problems to it. This clip serves no purpose other than just being a wholesome moment in an episode that was very hard to watch because of the amount of death and destruction.
The boys have finished working on the coop. There's a woman in Trae who sells chickens.
I'm waiting for the question.
There is no question coming. I'm simply informing you that the coop has been repaired and that a woman in Trae sells chickens. You may now correctly assume that I shall be buying some of those chickens and placing them in the coop. I've had my last bloody breakfast of beans.
This ain't breakfast and supper.
I know which meal it is, Jacob. I prepared it. But tomorrow I will be preparing breakfast, and I shall be doing it without eggs. A dilemma I shall remedy by noon.
I think I'm gonna ride tomorrow.
Doc said wait.
It's been a week. A week's long enough to heal anything.
I can't think of one thing that can heal in a week. Cut doesn't heal in a week. Flu doesn't. Bruise doesn't. Hell, it takes 6 weeks to heal a bone. That bone in your head that we drilled through, I promise you, is not healed. This is the first time every seat at this table has been filled since before the war.
So it is.
Wasn't sure you'd noticed.
I noticed.
Give me a whole show of Jacob and Carrot talking to each other. I wasn't sure you noticed. I noticed. Just all of this, please.
So listening to that awesome back and forth between Kara and Jacob and the beautiful writing between them.
And silly Zane with his, I'm going to ride tomorrow with Zane with a hole in his head.
The whole thing. I loved the whole, I can't think of anything that heals in a week. When you said that, I kind of like, I did like a, because as a mom, he's so right. That made me feel like, yeah, you're so right, Jacob. You're so right.
But I also thought to myself, I agree with Zane. I feel like it's about a week. A week is
you're
pretty
totally
much,
like that.
A
you
week is
like,
pretty
I'm
much
fine.
good enough. A week is too
like
long,
that.
honestly. I'm
It's
40s.
not how bodies work.
I'm 40s overdue for getting shit going again after a week.
Nice. But but overall, now in having this moment and all of us listeners, you guys listening to, maybe you were irritated with me talking about the prostitution talk. Maybe you thought, no, I loved it. I wish there was more of it. Okay, so if you're comparing this, everyone sitting around the Dutton table and us having conversations and things going on with them, are we pissed? Do we feel ripped off about all the time spent with some random naked woman in a bed getting hit or hurt in some way, tortured in some way? Like, doesn't that all feel like I'm so angry we didn't spend that time with Helen Mirren and Harrison Ford and all these awesome storylines that we had going on over here?
I feel entirely ripped off. They're so good together and they're so wholesome. And you know what? There's nothing bad about it. And there is plot to be learned and there is lessons to be learned here and there is value here. And this is important about why the Duttons 100 years later are still fighting for this place. It's this moment. It's the table being filled for the first time. How many times do we see in mainline Yellowstone, no one could get through a meal in that house, let alone the table never being remotely filled? It's important to see it wasn't always like that. This has value for those that are invested in the Dutton story in Yellowstone. Spend time here.
Yes,
Spend time
please.
here. I implore you. That was just a pure wholesome moment that made me smile and made me laugh. I cut out the Jack, part and Elizabeth silly laughing at him about why we can't have beans anymore just because they needed to make the clip shorter. And Jack is pretty irrelevant, especially after this episode. This clip was hard for me because I like on its face how sweet it is between these two, but this is a problematic promise, I think, for Jacob to be making and continue to be making.
I'd say be careful, but it seems a waste of breath.
I'll be as careful as I can.
Bring him home.
Yeah.
And bring yourself home. Promise.
I can't make that promise.
Are you going to make it or I'm riding with you?
I promise I'll try.
No. Not good enough. In 56 years, you've never broken your word to me. I don't expect today to be any different. Now, promise? Or shall I grab my coat?
I promise.
At some point, Jacob is not going to be able to keep that promise, and that breaks my heart. That's how I took it. I took it in one day he won't come home. He's going to make this promise and not come home. And maybe it was just because of how much death was in this episode, but it hit me. I smiled and then I frowned.
I felt the same way. I was, I heard her desperation in her voice, just feeling like if you wish you could make someone promise hard enough that they could never die. That would be amazing. But I think if you're right. It just highlighted how vulnerable they really are. And even them saying the 56 years, there was something about that felt like, oh gosh, you guys have long lived past the expiration date on most people at this time. So I am shocked that you guys are still both around, which is wonderful. But it felt scary. Like, oh no.
Too scary. Yeah. Especially in light of how many other people were dropping like flies in this episode, right? If we're going with we're wrapping up storylines via killing everyone, Pete made a promise to return to Tiona and it did not work out. And they were 1/4 these guys' age with a lot less obvious violence around them. Jacob is literally riding off to a gunfight he anticipates and fully expects to have and is in his 70s. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about this promise. Eventually this promise gets broken and that makes me very sad.
Let me see your ticket. Well, you could switch in Fargo, or you could take a train to Billings out of Sioux Falls.
Would it make much of a difference?
Weather's bad everywhere, but Fargo's gonna be a mess. Not one of those trains is getting out. I'll book you through Sioux Falls. You'll wait a day on the train, but at least you'll know when's coming.
Thank you.
You do have a sleeping car booked, sir.
I can't sleep in those things.
Where were you stationed?
Argonne.
What battalion?
The one they lost. Can I sit here if you don't mind?
Don't mind at all.
I love this scene so much because when Spencer says he can't sleep in the rail car, It's just a nice bit of acting from the attendant. He literally stands straighter, and I think even goes to like parade rest with his hands behind him. Like he is instantly back in service. And like there's a whole thing of respect that comes over his face. I loved it. Without words and just the change of his body language, there's instant respect being given here to what Spencer went through in the war and a guy who got it. You know, I don't know what you thought about the scene, and there's information here, but like, I thought that was a really cool scene we hear all these people talking about Spencer and Spencer the war hero, Spencer this, but this guy like gave us a very visible response to what Spencer went through, either because he doesn't even say that he served, but you get the impression that he must have done something, right?
Yeah, it was really nice to see somebody with some compassion, some empathy, some respect. It's that thing that we were looking for when we were like, why is Spencer not talking to people who are in authority, like with more respect? I expected him to act more like the conductor acted when he encountered different law people or what have you than the way that he did act. I thought it was really great to show that, you know, a lot of people know everything about like Vietnam soldiers coming back and not being respected. But I think that there's not a lot of collective knowledge about other wars and how people came back and how soldiers came back and how they felt and how they were received. And I think this is a really good reminder that it seems like universally there's going to be some sort of misunderstanding and or difficult transition for soldiers to come back no matter what war it is. And when I say misunderstanding, I mean like people may misunderstand their actions, like if that man had not really thought about it, he would have been like, why are you not sleeping in your sleeping car? And just like moved on, you know, been like annoyed about it or whatever.
Right.
Decided Spencer was weird. Yeah.
Right.
And so it was really nice to show that and say like, no, it's not like that. And you know, there were people that absolutely respect the service and everything. So I thought that was great. I feel really badly for Spencer to hear stuff like that he is not capable of sleeping or taking a rest in the sleeping car. That makes me so sad because it's like finally you get a little bit of a break. I was hoping you could take it could take a little bit of a respite, but also, I feel like in order for him to run across anybody else, he's got to be in the main cars because it would be really easy to like lock the door and sleep for like the next, you know, however long. But this keeps him in the mix by saying he's not going to go hide out in his private car. He's going to be out here with everybody the whole time.
So just a little history corner here. So towards the end, the last major Western Allies offensive of World War I was the Meuse-Argonne offensive, which basically took place from September and all the way until the armistice in middle November. A lot of fighting happened in the Argonne Forest during this part, and in October in particular of 1918, there is a battalion that is referred to as the Lost Battalion. 9 companies of the United States 77th Division gained the name the Lost Battalion after being surrounded by German forces in the Argonne Forest during this Meuse-Argonne offensive. On October 2nd, 1918, after advancing quickly, the unit moved ahead of the rest of its Allied line and became surrounded by German forces. Over the next 6 days, the unit fought off several German attacks and suffered a bombardment from Allied artillery. Of the over 500 men who entered the forest, only 194 were rescued. Now, Spencer we're told he's in the 1st Infantry Division, which is a separate division from the 77th Division. The 77th Division was actually called the Liberty Division because it was mustered out of New York. The 1st Infantry Division is a combined arms division of the United States Army. It is the oldest continuously serving division in the United States Regular Army, and it has been in continuous service since it was organized in 1917 for World War I. Officially named the Big Red One after its shoulder patch has a giant red number 1 on it. It was also called the Fighting First. Here's where it's important for purposes for Spencer. From October 1st to October 12th of 1918, that was during the overall Argonne Forest part of this last offensive. It was several different battles that are kind of grouped together as this quote-unquote Meuse-Argonne offensive. The 1st Infantry Division advanced a total of 7 kilometers over the 12 days and defeated in whole or in part 8 different German divisions. By the end of the war, the division had reported that had suffered over 4,900 killed in action, 17,000 wounded in action, and over 1,000 men missing or died of wounds. 5 division soldiers received medals of honor coming out of the Argonne battle. In total, the Meuse-Argonne offensive was the largest in United States military history. It involved over 1.2 million American soldiers, sailors, and Marines, along with an additional 800,000 French and 850 Siamese personnel. It was also the deadliest campaign in the history of the United States, or deadliest single campaign in the history of the United States Army. It resulted in over a total of 350,000 total casualties, which included over 26,000 American lives. So people understood, even 4 years out, people understood. You said Argonne, people got it. That's why this man has this reaction when Spencer says where he was stationed. That's why Banner sits up straighter in the speakeasy when he hears that he was 1st Infantry in Argonne during the war. He earned that Medal of Honor. So pretty interesting stuff. I feel like World War I history is definitely not as well known as, like you said, Vietnam, or clearly as much as World War II. But the mustard gas and the hand-to-hand fighting, I mean, just the flashbacks that we've seen in Spencer from season 1, it looked pretty horrific. And I think the show has done a good job of showing Spencer's PTSD. I don't know, you hear those numbers and I feel, I don't know how you internalize it, but does that help explain maybe why Spencer is as gruff and off-putting and standoffish as he is?
Sure. I think that we always gave him, some amount of a pass in terms of like he has had a lot go on. And even if you didn't know all of that stuff about the war, just his own journey that we've witnessed has been so arduous and just exhausting that I've never have like held it against him that he was being gruff. I was just surprised in certain situations. It's fine if he's a little standoffish with the conductor. I mean, whatever. You're not, he doesn't hold any power over you. But when you're talking to the marshals and stuff, that was the times when I was like, too gruff, being too standoffish to people who are, can really help you. And you're making it weird, just weird. That's how I felt, honestly, across the board, was that I don't have an issue with his overall personality or his overall protectiveness of his own self. Like, it's fine. He's shown that he can show a warm and fuzzy side with Alex. So he's shown range in his ability to have different emotions. I just, when it comes to official people, I was a little confused by his behavior.
It did make me laugh, though, because of the quote unquote rude Spencer persona that we've talked about a bunch this season. This scene in the train car, it was so funny because it starts with Spencer eavesdropping on another conversation that the attendant is having with another couple about snow east of Fargo, snowing out the tracks and causing delays. Spencer inserts himself into the conversation, and the attendant tells him, well, because the tracks are in the valley, it gets snowed in. And Spencer is harassing the man about why he put the tracks in the valley. So that was 48 years ago during the Battle of Little Bighorn. Like, this guy is not responsible for the tracks in the valley. Why are you harassing him? He's just being, he has entered his old man grandpa phase at way too young an age. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
The yelling at clouds.
We say too young of age, but again, life expectancy was not that long in 1923. So now we're in 24, but not as long. So, hey, he's maybe this is the appropriate age for him to get Grandpa E.
True, and especially when everyone else around you, or almost everyone else around you, died in the Battle of Argonne. Yes. Maybe you're very thankful for those men, and you don't have time to waste on people putting train tracks in the wrong place.
Exactly.
So. There's a lot of information going on here. I counted over 9 different train stations were mentioned in this episode. Caroline, when I tell you the number of maps I had opened on my computer and my phone the last couple of days trying to track all the different places here.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I got real bogged down between Alex and Paul and Hillary and their 1,500-mile car journey and Spencer in this conversation about the train journey. I was really deep into tiny cities and towns dotting Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, and all points everywhere.
Well, this is what our listeners pay for.
Yes. The point to know is that Spencer is going to be waiting a day out of Sioux Falls because it is the only line currently that has reliable access to get to Livingston, because there is snow along so many other different possible branches to get to the Livingston train station. Sioux Falls is the one he's going to go with. And we actually see Spencer waiting. He's waiting on the bench before he's getting back on the train. I don't know if you remember, he's talking to that lady. And there was a weird little conversation where, you know, she talks about the odd weather, and Spencer, he tells her, you know, just remember there's 3 seasons in the Rocky: July, August, and winter. Do you know what I thought? I thought to myself, that was information you probably should have given Alexandra at some point in between ravagings.
Ooh. Yes. All information should have been passed on. What I put on the top of my notes when I first started watching this episode was like a little moment where I thought back to the previous episode, and I thought whenever he talked to Sheriff McDowell on the phone, I was like, how is he not saying not only is Spencer coming home, but BT dubs? A woman is going to be showing up on the porch who is my wife. Her name is Alex. I don't know if Spencer knows she's pregnant, current or not. Exactly.
I don't think so. Because
I'm going to leave it as I'm not sure. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I'm leaving it as I'm not sure. But don't you think that would have been good information to tell to the sheriff, to tell to Kara? And then like, hey, a woman may be showing up at any time. Would that have been good?
You would think. He was just so concerned with, I'm coming to make war because you haven't done anything.
Yeah,
there
he was so
definitely
concerned
some
about being
information
like
that
nasty.
Right. He was taking it very personal to the sheriff, that the sheriff literally had failed the family by not doing anything. And so now Spencer was coming to clean up his mess. He did make it really personal. But yes, the idea of also, tell my aunt there may be a strange British woman who shows up. She's cool. If any of y'all run across her, let her in, because that's my wife. We got separated in Marseille. I thought it was Italy, by the way. And if you go back to episode 1, I said that he got put off the boat just outside of Italy. I was wrong. I meant to correct this a couple of weeks ago when Alex mentioned it. He was put off the boat in Marseille, France. So just no one says like, you got it wrong. He was in the wrong city. It was in Marseille, France. He got put off the boat. So
got it.
I just wanted to be out there.
I can't believe you sat there with all those maps. But you know what? As soon as Paul and Hillary got out the maps, I was like, oh, Mike's going to have to know exactly what their journey is. I thought this road trip was freaking insane. I was scared the whole time. Every single time they mentioned, oh, you should come with us. Oh, you should do this. I think it's because Whitfield's antics and what Taylor is willing to show and write about and make people act like made me scared the entire time we had Paul and Hillary around. At no point did I relax and think this is going to be okay. So when they ended up dead, I was like, that was actually the least painful thing that I thought could have happened, because I was ready for them to traffic her, to just keep her, I don't know, somehow locked in their house, to a million different things, ransom her, anything.
It is so rare for me to be the hopeless optimistic and you to be the one waiting for the shoe to fall. I was ensorcelled by these two from jump last week, and every little bit of the way.
No part of you was scared about Taylor. Don't be scared about Paul and Hillary, but you're not scared.
For sure. But I felt like the way they introduced it made me feel very, I mean, we talked about this last week. I don't need to rehash it, but I feel like the way they introduced it and bonded the three of them together over talking about the Frank and the accent, but then the way she was actively wary to his hand and all of that last week made me feel like, okay, if it was going to go some other way, this would be playing out differently, it felt like to me. So I'm going to play this clip. This encapsulates perfectly everything I love about these two. They've just finished listening to Alex's very dramatic story about how she got to where she is right now.
Shouted it from the stern. Paul.
That's the most fantastic thing I've ever heard. I'm tempted to drive you to the home of Edgar Rice Burroughs this moment and force him at gunpoint to write down every word just as you told it.
Well, sadly, there is much of the story that's unwritten. Seems a snowdrift has thwarted me this time. I've overcome everything else, but these acts of God are annoyingly effective.
Perhaps I can offer a solution.
Do you have an aeroplane?
I don't. But I do have a car.
You have a car.
I have a car.
I don't know how to drive.
I also have the ability to drive the machine.
Yes, Paul. Let's do it. You would do that for me?
I can think of very little I wouldn't do to be some small part of this odyssey that you find yourself on.
Come on. God damn it. I love these two. They just want to be a part of the story. They want to see how it unfolds.
I'm telling you, it's just the writing that scared me. It wasn't the actual characters. They hung in there. I mean, they did it to the end. I'm shocked. Literally. Totally shocked. But also, I mean, that moment in the gas station when the woman behind the cash register is like, do not do this, and like shook her head at Alex.
Alex got it. Alex heard her.
Sorry, man. Every part of me was like,
oh yeah. This is the downfall.
Just freaking out. Yes.
Because it was still all adventure, and it literally to the end.
For all the things that we want to say nice about Paul and Hillary, they drove her to a snowdrift of isolation. Nothing good is happening here. Nothing. So, okay, and with all your mapping and everything, do you have any clue how far they made it?
I do, actually.
I figured you would.
So my guess is they're around Buffalo, South Dakota, which is in the northeast corner of South Dakota, the very northeast corner of South Dakota. We know that because he talks about how there is going to be a spot of weather in Buffalo, and then they stop for the gas. So looking at the map, from if they were headed towards, Emigrant, the way it goes on the map. So Miles City would have been the next stop on their journey based on what they had set out back in their house in Winnetka. So the journey was supposed to be 1,500 miles, Miles City to Big Timber to Livingston to Emigrant. That was the general last part of the journey. So if they're in Buffalo, South Dakota, they're getting gas. They are about 160 miles northwest to Miles City, Montana from Buffalo, South Dakota. So they're 169 miles southwest of Miles City. So they're somewhere on the very eastern border of Montana. That long story short, my guess is because it would have taken them very little time to cross over into Montana from where they were in South Dakota. So they're on their way to Miles City, somewhere on that stretch of road, and obviously very still far away from Bozeman or from anywhere else, or even from Livingston. What they should have done was, instead of continuing going northwest towards Miles City, they should have listened to the lady in the counter and headed southwest coming out of Buffalo and entered Wyoming and gone to Sheridan. It's virtually the same kind of distance, but obviously Sheridan, Wyoming being a little bit south of everywhere else, which was in Montana, presumably the snow would have been less, and obviously then there would have been a train station that was still running. Whereas we know from the conductor or the attendant on Spencer's train, everything I was just talking about, Miles City, Big Timber, all snowed in. They literally drove into the wall of snow. Of the many different paths they could have gone, they picked the worst one. Even if they had driven to Sheridan and then they could have gone straight north driving, that probably still would have gotten them closer. They still may have hit the wall of snow where the car wouldn't have been able to pass, but they took the north route and literally drove right into a wall of snow.
So in what world does Alex get out of this without dying herself?
I don't know.
How does this work?
I don't know, because when they pull back and Elsa's giving her sixth extinction event is coming,
yes.
The camera is pulling back very dramatically. They are not only in the middle of nowhere, you can't even discern that car is pulled over on the side of a road.
That's how I felt. I was like, it's so buried in the snow.
I mean, even Paul was almost half buried.
Yeah.
And he's feet away from the snow. By the way, shout out to the makeup department. I should have pulled up who the show's head makeup artist is for their department. Hillary gross as hell, but that frostbitten, eyes open, dead look that she had, I mean, I gasped.
Gross as hell.
It was gross as hell, but man, it looked good. It looked like frostbite. I mean, it was kind of terrifying. And think about how disorienting. You wake up sleeping on the floorboards. You're freezing. Paul's not in the car. You see the gases at the gas tank, the gas meters on empty. And then you're trying to talk to Hillary, and then you find out she said, like, imagine it's like a Twilight Zone episode. I can't even imagine.
It would be such a horror movie that you were dealing with right then. I can't even imagine. I really can't. I can't imagine. How does she not just go into like catatonic shock? Like,
I don't know. It has to be someone on horseback that comes through. Here's the kick of it.
What would be the reason?
Here's the kick of it.
Would
So Sioux Falls to Livingston is 775 miles going east to west. That's the car route distance anyway, Sioux Falls to Livingston. But where Miles City is and where they're probably stuck is probably going to be, maybe if not visible from where the train would be running through, at some point, Spencer is literally going to pass by her. Like pretty soon. Well, at the time of the show anyway, he will literally be taking a train just north of where she is. And I say just, but I mean, it may be 100 miles, but in the grand scheme of the United States, so close. And he will literally be passing by her. I don't know how she gets out. It would have to be one of those wild horses that we saw running in the beautiful montage. One of the things I liked about this road trip, and all my notes, I just have road trip. So it's like the Western Wisconsin, because they were giving us a little guide as it went. That montage was scenic views, drinks, laugh, the driving lessons. Eastern South Dakota, laser peeing in a bush. We see the wild horses running. We also see it's getting a little bit colder. We see the Native American settlement, which felt very ominous, the way everyone was staring at everyone. Things are getting a little more serious. Snow begins. Spot of weather near Buffalo. They're putting chains on the tires, right? Then the next time, now the snow is coming down. I love that Paul, even though he was freezing, he gave his gloves to Hillary for her to put on an extra pair of gloves. I just love these guys so much. And the way the show built the foreboding, every time we went back to them, it was a little more serious and a little less funny and a little more anxiety inducing. And finally they look at each other and, you know, Paul says, I think the last words he says to Hillary is, quite the adventure indeed. And it was, I mean, their final adventure, and maybe they drove her into oblivion. But also, you can't help but feel romantic. Like, in the same way Titanic is a tragedy love story, this felt like a very tragic love story to me. I just love them so much. I just want to hug Janet Montgomery and Augustus Prue. I love them. They are my absolute favorite characters of the season. I love them. So I don't know what damage. I mean, they're in the middle.
I'm glad they
nowhere.
turned out to be on the up and up. I mean, it's okay. They turned out okay. It was just the way that this story was told this season. I couldn't possibly be comfortable with them. No.
So Miles City is 169 miles from Buffalo, South Dakota. Sheridan, Wyoming, 275 miles southwest from Buffalo, South Dakota. So about a little more than 100 extra miles of driving, but with no snow and actual roads you can see. Fool's errand. I don't know what happens to Alex from here, because she's already in a bad state. When she wakes up, I mean, you could feel her teeth chattering. That's where she's starting from. They dressed kind of warmly, but not for 6 feet of snow warmly. I mean, clearly, Paul, how far he made it, 50 feet from the car before he fell and didn't get up again. So I don't know what malnourished, pregnant Alex, how much mileage she's going to be able to do, before she gives out. When she crawls back into the car, I was like, girl, I get it. Like, I don't know what you're supposed to do.
I can't come up with a scenario beyond just a complete random person pops up here.
Total Deus Ex Machina kind of.
Yeah, and that's how it's going to feel.
The car starts again like Herbie the Love Bug or something. I don't know.
Yeah, if she went out there and it turned out that Paul actually was coming back with gas and had gas in that little container or something. Who knows? But I don't see her being okay. I feel like, is there a chance that Spencer makes it back to a pregnant Elizabeth and has to do the super old-fashioned well, your husband's dead and my wife is probably dead. And so now we have to be a family. Is that
Maybe?
a thing?
I mean, my feeling, I think I said this a couple episodes ago, my feeling had been all along that Alex, being the spiritual successor to Elsa and to Kara, would be destined to raise a child that was not her own. And so I had been thinking for a while, I didn't know how it was going to play out, but I had been thinking for a while that it was going to be Spencer and Alex that raised ultimately Jack and Elizabeth's child in the same way Jacob and Kara raised Spencer and John Sr. And I'm still clinging to hope on that. But man, I gotta tell you, I have thought about it a lot. I don't know how she gets out of this one. Not in any kind of way that doesn't break all credibility. What a bummer if it turned out to be that Spencer has to be with Elizabeth. Two people that could not be more mismatched from each other.
Agreed. They would not have chosen each other. No, not at all.
Before we say goodbye, let's finish the way we began. One final toast.
We journey the path of the pioneers in the name of lost love, soon to be found.
Well, this was another amazing episode of 1923. I cannot believe we only have one more. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Thank you for listening to the Yellowstone Podcast 1923 edition. If you wouldn't mind heading over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and rate, review, and subscribe. And while you're there, if you could, please leave us a 5-star review. It would be most appreciated, and it really does help in the promotion of the show. And if you leave us a 5-star review, we're going to read on the air, like this very nice one that just came in a week and a half ago. For the Love of History from Julie Kovac, 5 stars. I have such an appreciation for the history and facts that are discussed on this podcast. The details matter, and you hit the mark with the details every single episode. Julie Kovac, we love it. We are so thankful that you love it, and we are so thankful that you listen. And guys, thank you again. We continue just to be the tops of charts literally all over the world, from Lithuania to the United States. I mean, we were within the top 20 in the last couple of days in the United States. There are a lot of shows that cover, a lot of podcasts that cover Yellowstone, a lot of podcasts that talk about this show, and we appreciate you spending time with us for a couple of hours every week. So it means a lot.
Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.